In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Hello and welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'd like to introduce my very special guest, Natasha Leger. Natasha is an international trade attorney turned global strategy consultant to startups and Fortune 500 companies. She is the founder and president of ITF Advisors, a strategy advisory firm, and the co-founder and editor of LBX Journal, a location intelligence magazine. Now, overcoming the challenges of eating healthy during international and domestic trips is what led Natasha to write Travel Healthy, a road warrior's guide to eating healthy. She wrote this book to give her fellow business travelers hope in what often feels like a very hopeless situation. So welcome, Natasha.
Thank you so much, Marianne. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you today.
Oh, the honor's all mine. I've known you for some time here, and you have an amazing book out, and I want to get right to that so we can start talking about this book of yours.
Fantastic. I wrote this book because diet and nutrition books have really been leaving the business traveler behind, and one of the biggest challenges for frequent business travelers is how to eat healthy on the road. And I've been traveling for pleasure and for business for many, many years now, and I was tired of feeling like a waste product. And so
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So my company at the time really wasn't doing anything to help in that situation, and a lot of the issues behind that is just a general corporate travel culture and a corporate dining culture where nutrition isn't really at a priority. And so I had to start taking things into my own hands if I didn't want to wind up in a hospital bed and on pharmaceuticals late into my years.
Well, and then for our listeners that are just learning about you, now we're not going to name the company, but you worked with a very large Fortune 500 company, and this was for the business traveler that there wasn't even a consideration for them as far as when you're on the road. How do we help you with making healthy choices? And some people think that's a slippery slope, but I think a lot of people do appreciate having like education or information in regards to that.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll say this is when you become a consultant, and a lot of what consulting means is traveling on the road to clients, and they don't teach you about that business traveler lifestyle when you're in business school or graduate school. And frankly, when you're onboarded for these companies, they don't really give you any information to help support you in what that lifestyle is going to be like. But what I will say is that they generally compensate you handsomely for disrupting your lifestyle.
Well, and I can remember, because in my previous life, I was a road warrior, and I can remember late nights, days of just coffee, and very poor options as far as what I could actually have to eat. And, and we are such in a rush, it's even hard to think of, okay, where can I even get something that's considerably healthy? Because I do like to have a healthier lifestyle.
Well, that's exactly right. And especially, when you have control over your environment, it makes it a little easier. But when you're on the road, you feel like you have no control. And so it's an issue of feeling like it's a hopeless battle. And I wrote this book because my fellow road warriors really asked me to. They would say to me, how do you do it? You're just as busy. You're just as stressed. You have just as many meetings to get to. You go through the same delays at the airport and everything. So what's your trick? And I was hearing this for a couple of years, and I don't know why, but it was at one of these ubiquitous conference dinners, and the lady I was sitting next to told me how she used to be a health fanatic, took on this new job, was working 16 hours a day, was constantly on a plane, completely fell off her bandwagon, and she's, I need help. And so I started giving her some of my tips, and she said, you really need to write a book for the rest of us to give us some hope. And I don't know why, but in that moment, I went home and I wrote 80% of the book within a month. She inspired me for that moment in time, and I still can't explain why, but really lit the fire for me to write this book. And so I wrote it for my fellow road warriors to really give them hope, because the real issue is, it's really hard to eat healthy today because healthy has become so marketed between low fat, low salt, low sugar, that people don't know what to eat anymore. They don't know what's happened to their food supply. They don't know the nutrients that are in their food or not in their food anymore. And then there are so many people that are eating, quote, healthy because the marketing has told them that it's healthy, yet they're still getting sick and they don't understand why. And cutting through the medical, the nutritional, the dietitian, and the marketing jargon so that people could really get a handle on things and make quick choices, recognizing that your choice may not be perfect in every situation, and that just because your choice isn't perfect in every situation doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means that what you eat is a function of the environment that you're in, but you can look for the most optimum foods to eat. And, on that issue of food, is as I was writing the book and thinking about my audience as being business travelers, busy people that don't really have much of an attention span anymore beyond a PowerPoint presentation, is how can this be presented in a way that is easy and empowers people. So the first thing I said is, we need to change the word for food to describe what we should be eating for optimum health. And why do I say that? I say that because food is really no longer a good word to describe what we should be eating. So I realized that we needed a new word to connect what we eat, or more importantly, how it's grown, how it's processed, and then what we ultimately decide to eat, connecting that whole web to make it really easy. So that new word is Nori, Nouri.
Now, I know that you took a lot of time in coming up with the word and the description, and also said it would be easy for business travelers, so when they're on the road and they understand what's the difference between food and Nori, it's easy for them to start going, okay, I'm looking for Nori. And what is your definition of that?
So Nori, the short and sweet definition, is non-chemically treated, non-genetically modified, unprocessed, whole food. Now, the longer definition, and I have a longer definition that I'll read to you directly from the book, and I defined it that way because when we think about health or the way health is being marketed to us, it's being marketed to us in terms of carbohydrates and fats and minerals and animal protein. And so I thought it was really important to hit on each one of those component parts. So the long and official definition of Nori is any plant or animal-based protein, fat, carbohydrate, vitamin, mineral, or phytonutrient that is ingested in liquid or solid form that improves the cellular functions of the body to strengthen the immune system, promote energy, and reduce the risk of illness or disease. So Nori is food that has high nutrient value that benefits the body. That's a lot of responsibility in a little word.
That most definitely is. And so and I know that you have this broken down very simply in your book, so it's really easy for business travelers to be able to discern what is Nori
and what is something that's going to cause me problems later.
Absolutely. So I do a breakdown in the book of basically what is unhealthy, because I think that's important for people to know right off the bat so that they know what that actually means for their body, what are the negative impacts on the body, and then Nori, healthy eating or healthy optimum choices, the positive impacts on the body. And so it's very easy for people to be able to determine what that is. And then also in the book, I have a chart, which is, if you're in a restaurant and looking at a menu, how can you do a thumbs up, thumbs down decision? And I really like this idea of a thumbs up, thumbs down. It's not precise, and that's okay, recognizing that we're not always in a perfect environment. And that is the whole point of the book, why it makes it so easy for business travelers, because the main obstacle is, I don't have any choice. There's just, there's grabbing stuff on the go. It's the conference food. I get in late and it's room service. So how do you manage those dynamics? And that's what the book really helps people do.
Well, and I used your book the last time I was in Atlanta, last time I flew into Atlanta. And not all airports are equal with their food choices, but there's a thought process that people are more inclined also to gravitate towards something that's a little bit healthier. So you are seeing some different choices out there. I have to say, when I was in Atlanta, so I had your book, and it made it really easy for me to go ahead and say, okay, this is Nori, and obviously there's the row of fast food places. It's like, okay, none of those would really fit in this category. It might be something that we think momentarily fills us, but then it's also wrought with issues,
Oh, absolutely. And I think, for me, my motto is just because you can doesn't mean you should. And,
yes.
and for many people, there's license in that, which is, if it's being sold, then it can't really be that bad for you. So, why not indulge a little bit? But it's the aggregate effects on us that's the issue. And especially if you're traveling frequently and you're eating out all the time, that adds up very quickly. And so,
and go through that, because I've always been extremely intrigued by the stats that you have pulled on this and that you've used. And I mean, some of this is startling.
So one of my favorites is $1 of unhealthy food equals $5 of healthcare costs.
Okay, so those stats are absolutely astounding. It really makes you think twice before grabbing that next fast food or that cheesecake or dessert or what have you when you're on the road.
Yeah, it's huge, because, especially when people think, well, it's too expensive to buy organic, or it's too time consuming for me to figure out what is really healthy and what I should eat. I know it's bad for me, but, no big deal. Well, when you start to look at those numbers, it's staggering. So, for example, a business traveler who may travel 50% of the time with an average meal per diem of about $97 a day, that can total up to about $46,000 in healthcare costs if that meal per diem is spent on unhealthy food choices, because $1 of food equals $5 of healthcare costs. It's a big deal to us as individuals because nobody wants to be unhealthy. Nobody wants to be diagnosed with a horrible disease. Nobody really wants to be on, pharmaceuticals, on these blockbuster drugs for the rest of their lives. It adds up. Mm-hmm. It adds up for you in terms of, when you're sick, it's not only a financial toll, but it's an emotional toll. It's a toll on your family, on your ability to work. And, from a company perspective, it adds up for them as well. I mean, they are trying so hard to try to reduce healthcare costs. And I find it really interesting that they're doing that with corporate wellness programs. But on average, companies spend about $594 per employee on a corporate wellness program. Mm-hmm. But most corporate wellness programs really don't address the needs of the business traveler. So
they kind of, that's a whole area that really has never been looked at or addressed or really properly supported.
No, not at all. And so there's a new term in addition to Nori for people to jot down, and that's travel wellness, which is how can companies support their business travelers. And supporting business travelers really requires understanding the unique environments that they're exposed to on a regular basis. And it's different from someone who is working at the same office and doesn't travel. So, for example, they're exposed to the stale cabin air and have to deal with jet lag and the dehydration issues, constantly eating out all the time, constantly sleeping in a different bed and having their sleep patterns disrupted. This type of environment is not what a typical corporate wellness program focuses on. And so, when we kind of look at that, since you like stats.
I do.
so corporate wellness industry is about $2 billion.
Mm-hmm.
The corporate dining industry is about $12 billion. The restaurant, the restaurant industry is about $600 billion, and corporate travel is about $305 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you start to look at those numbers and you start to realize that the business traveler lifestyle is really imposed by the employer, that companies really need to start thinking differently about travel wellness and how to support their traveling employees, especially if they have a large number of traveling employees, because it makes a dent at the productivity level, at the employee morale level, and at the bottom line.
Definitely their bottom line. In the older picture, not addressing this is going to cost them, hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the size of the company, for not looking at establishing a travel wellness program, incorporating that into their wellness program. There's a whole population of employees that they basically are just not really paying attention to.
Well, exactly. And, business travelers should not be left behind. And it's really not that difficult. It's really easy to support your business travelers. One is to give them the resources so that they can empower themselves and make the right decisions. One way to start the book, of course. But more importantly,
Yeah.
Shameless plug there. No, but more importantly is that, look, companies are paying for travel meal reimbursements. It's a sunk cost. That $97 per diem is a sunk cost. Imagine if they could turn the sunk cost into an investment, which means that $97 goes into the same menu but different nutrients, meaning organic, non-GMO, unprocessed food. And that can be possible. Just help employees with recommendations about the restaurants that they can find or the hotels that are really supporting a wellness approach, not only in terms of the building environment, in terms of low VOC paints and lighting and air quality, but also in terms of where they're sourcing their food so that it's local and it's organic and it's not full of pesticides and will reduce risk of illness and disease. It's really not that hard, and it's a win-win for everyone to say, hey, let's take this cost and turn it into an investment.
Oh, definitely. And it's not telling employees have to eat these things and you have to do this. It's actually, many employees want that guidance and they want the information. So, like, how do I choose what to eat? I mean, there have been many times that, I'm in either airports or conferences, and I'm looking at this short menu of really, things I just would never eat, on a daily basis, trying to decide what's like the lesser of all evils here,
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things I'm a very strong proponent of and I recommend in the book is, if it's not Nori, you need to ask yourself, is it worth the damage today? So that we become conscious in the choices that we are making. And, again, I was saying in the beginning, it's not perfect, but once you can start to think about it differently, and once you can start requesting and asking that, let's say coffee. I mean, how many business travelers drink coffee as
yeah.
ritual, not only a ritual, but also a way to get through the day, which I don't really recommend because caffeine has its negative impacts. But, if you are going to drink coffee, then the number one thing that you can do is drink organic coffee. And then think about what you have to put into the coffee in terms of the milk and the sugars. If those things were changed so that they're organic, non-GMO, you're already on your way. And that's what I'm hoping that people really see with changing the word from food to Nori, and how to think about their decisions in a really simple way that can shift not only people's health, but more importantly is shift the availability of the foods that they come across when they're traveling.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and and what you put in your grocery basket, this is also good for people who are, maybe not traveling at the moment, and you just want to look at improving your lifestyle and life choices. I know many times I've been to the grocery store and I look at different things going, okay, well, what's really in this? And because the thing is, it does matter what we fuel our body with. All of that matters.
Absolutely. It's really very, very simple. In terms of eating healthy, and it's reading those labels and not outsourcing our health. And that's what's been so, I think, difficult for people that are struggling to eat healthy or healthier, is that for the most part, we've been outsourcing our health to the food companies, to restaurants, and they have different motivations than we do as individuals. So it's so important for us to take that power back, if you will, and be really educated on what is going into our foods.
Definitely.
those choices.
Definitely. And the thing that I appreciate the most about this book that you've written and the information that you have is that you are not a dietitian. You are not a doctor. This isn't a diet book. The information you have isn't about dieting. It's how to find healthy food choices, but you come at it from a very a position where you don't have preconceived judgments from one line of work or another. You're really approaching this with a very fresh look that most people don't even look at, and you make it very simple, very simple.
I synthesized about 15 years of research into health and alternative medicine and eating and raw foods diets and everything. And in all of those books, I realized that they were written by professionals, but they didn't really have an appreciation for the type of lifestyle a business traveler leads. And so I found usually in these books is that there would be either a paragraph or one page that was focused on traveling, and it was usually about bring your own snacks, which is a great...
Yeah, good luck with that one.
Well, I mean, it works. Okay, and I do recommend that as one approach, but frankly, it's not very practical. And I remember being in a raw foods class and asking the instructor, I said, well, so, what do you do when you're at a business meeting? And she said, oh, well, just bring your sunflowers and your avocado with you. And, I just said, well, you're just completely, I mean,
yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized,
I could just see, who's going to pull out an avocado from their computer bag and start eating that at a business meeting,
No, exactly. And, things have changed, but, once upon a time, they would look at you as if you were crazy for being a vegetarian,
mm-hmm.
let alone this. And so no, there are some constraints of the business world that we still have to work within. And so there needed to be a practical, approach to this.
Yeah. I know that's one of your favorite words.
Well, yes. There's so much that is wrapped up in food. There's culture, there's emotion, there's marketing. It's and I think about it now when I think about food, not only being a bad word to describe what we should be eating for optimum health, but food is now an industry. When I think about Nori is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle that you take with you wherever you go. And that's what's important. Behind this responsibility of a word is also a mindset, and it's a lifestyle, because once you adopt Nori as a word, you become responsible, and you look for ways to find as much Nori as possible, and then when you can't, you compensate. And on the compensation side, detoxing is critical. Whether you travel regularly or not, detoxing should be a part of your lifestyle, because we are exposed to so many toxins in the air, in the water, and
in our food. Yeah,
exactly. And frankly, no matter how clean we think we're eating, our transit systems need to be unplugged from time to time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the things that I also really appreciate about your just how Nori is a lifestyle and how your book explains it, how to look for Nori, it really made it very simple for me to, be plopped in any situation and really make some, very solid, practical, healthy choices and not feel like I'm stuck, and that's one of the things that, in reading your book, I had a great appreciation for it because, you're 100% right. Business travelers, they do have certain things that they have to experience in traveling. There's the jet lag and all the things we were talking about. And I can't tell you how many times before I even knew about your book that I would stand there at this counter trying to decide what was the lesser of all evils and what I could actually, have and not feel guilty about the next day.
Exactly. And I'm sure at that time it was, either I starve or
which that's not good either.
Right. And you just don't know. And so it's one is having the tools to think about it, right? And so I like to say, thumbs up, thumbs down. In 1 second, I can make a decision on whether it's Nori or not, and whether it's worth the damage in that particular instant. More importantly, it's it's easy, but it takes commitment. Planning ahead, and also, even when you're at the airport, for example, is not just deciding for the first thing that you see when you come up the escalator from the terminal into your concourse, right? Is depending on how much time you have, is, okay, well, can I go over and look at the directory and see, are there healthier options, or do I have to go with the Golden Arches, or do I have to go with the pizza or the hamburger and fries? What's in the fast food stuff. And there are a lot more options in the airport, and it just really requires a little more discipline on everybody.
And for our listeners, let's go over one of your tools. So I'm standing, just visualize me standing in front of this counter. And and it's got this, glass little dome, and we've got muffins and some sort of pastry thing, and they've got different arrangements of different types of packaged, like either sandwiches or those little like bento boxes kind of thing, and then we've got fresh fruit. Of all of these things, when I'm looking at this, how would I decide which one would be the Nori option? And again, we're in an airport. What would be the best Nori option from all of those?
So the best Nori option, because I'm presuming that the muffins and the pastries are not, they're not organic. They're not, there are probably GMO ingredients in them. They probably have a lot of salt and sugar and fat in them, and probably not all the good ones. So, generally the baked goods in that type of a situation, I would recommend staying away from. If there's a fruit bowl or oatmeal, I would recommend those. Now, with that said, if you're ready to chew your arm off, then just looking at them and saying, okay, well, which one is going to do the least harm for me? And I would venture to say, so for instance, if you've got a baked goods cabinet and you've got muffins, you've got pastries, and you've got a bagel. The bagel is the one that's probably least likely to have all of the bad ingredients. Now, people can argue high carbohydrates and all of that stuff and the wheat, but, again, these become relative. But frankly, if you can choose something that is whole food, that is unprocessed, which is going to be fruit then that would be the way to go.
The
other
choice.
thing,
yeah,
the best choice. I mean, the other thing is, if you're tired and you're a caffeine addict, I would recommend green teas or white teas as opposed to coffee, especially if the coffee is not.
Well, and it's interesting for people who are coffee drinkers. I mean, sometimes when I travel, I drink coffee. But when I ask for organic, there are organic options out there. It's not unheard of.
No, it's not. And frankly, the more people ask for them, they'll respond. I think there's a rule in retail that if 10 people ask for one thing, then they take notice. Because if 10 people ask, likely that it's more like 100 and 1,000 people that will ask for it, because so many people just, are not vocal. So yes, and asking every time you go to a retail establishment, a coffee place or deli or anything, is ask them for organic milk or, do you source organically on your fruits and vegetables? I mean, just the little things, the ones that wind up impacting you the most, makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
Definitely. Well, we are going to stop here for a quick break. We've been talking to Natasha Leger. She's the author of Travel Healthy, A Road Warrior's Guide to Eating Healthy. And you can go to her website at travelhealthybook.com. Her book's also available on Amazon. And she is going to be giving us some great information when we return back on travel wellness. So we'll be right back.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
In 2012, after returning home from Iraq and Afghanistan, Sean Gobin hiked over 2,000 miles of the Appalachian Trail. Recognizing the therapeutic effects of long-distance hiking, Sean founded Warrior Expeditions, a veteran nonprofit therapy program that supports veterans transitioning from their military service by hiking America's national scenic trails. Equipment and supplies are provided, as well as assistance with job placement. For more info or to help support these veterans, visit warriorexpeditions.org.
Are you having an average day? Do you seem to be having more average days than great days? I'm Marina J, and I help women turn that around. If you want fast, deep transformation on the stuff that hurts you the most, visit me at marinaj.net to receive support and inspiration now, because your happiness is everything.
Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074. 630-881-1074.
In a single moment, your life can change. Join Marianne Pastana, host of Moments with Marianne, for a transformative hour of leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Tune in to experience Moments with Marianne every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, all part of the Dream Vision 7 radio network. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Are you dreading your next business trip with all of the unhealthy food choices? Well, eating healthy while on the road for business is no longer a hopeless battle. Natasha Leger, a road warrior herself, not a doctor, dietitian, or nutritionist, but a real-life business person, understands the unique stresses of business travel and has written a book to inspire us and show us how easy it is to make healthy choices while on the road. Order Travel Healthy, a road warrior's guide to eating healthy at TravelHealthyBook.com. That's TravelHealthyBook.com.
Hello and welcome back to Moments with Marianne. Today we're speaking with my special guest, Natasha Leger, author of Travel Healthy, A Road Warrior's Guide to Eating Healthy. So Natasha, in your book, and just knowing you talk about KPI. So for our listeners, can you explain what that is and how that relates to our health?
Absolutely. So KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator, and it is a well-known acronym for many consultants and many business people. And from a health perspective, for the most part, people look at their health indicators as their cholesterol number, their triglycerides, and things like that. And oftentimes that is really kind of a one-dimensional snapshot of where you are. Instead, the idea is to look at, one is what is it that really defines your health. So one KPI is your immune system. How strong is your immune system? Because if your immune system is strong, you can weather a lot of potential illnesses and diseases. It's the body's ability to fight back and repair. Yeah, so that's one. And so when we think about what we eat, we want to think about, okay, well, is this going to boost my immune system, or is it going to compromise my immune system or weaken it? Because if it weakens your immune system, then it sets you up for illness and disease.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and so the way to think about what we eat and key performance indicator for the body is, what is this impact that it's going to have on two key areas of the body. And I just want to add quickly that the body is incredibly complex. There's a lot going on, but frankly, the two most important organs or areas to think about are the liver, the kidney, and the intestines. So this is where disease really starts, because if your transit system gets backed up and your liver and your kidneys get overcharged, then they're not processing toxins effectively. That's what gets into the bloodstream, that's what affects your cells, and that's what leads to illness and disease. So every time, we think about what we're going to eat, instead of saying, that donut, and I'm picking on donuts as opposed to hamburgers, but that I know is probably bad for me. Well, what does bad for me really mean? But if you start thinking about it in terms of, well, that's going to clog up my liver, or that's going to have a negative impact on my kidneys, or that's going to reduce the efficiency of my transit system. Now that's a completely different dynamic. Now you're really engaged, and that's the whole idea of thinking about your health from a KPI perspective. But more importantly, that KPI is holistic, because you're trying to make sure that your system remains in flux and in balance and never gets overcharged, overtaxed, or overwhelmed. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And, and it's kind of, this is actually a great place to then talk about, like the Nori game. And for our listeners who are just learning about Natasha speaks all over the country. You just were at a Employers Benefit Congress in Florida and spoke. You've been out in Utah. I know you've just been all over the map talking to employer groups in regards to this. So with your vast knowledge in regards to, Nori and traveling healthy, why don't we play the Nori game? That would be kind of a fun thing to do right now.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, and do you want to explain what the Nori game is?
Yeah, so the Nori game is how do you look at something that's presented in front of you, whether it's a menu item or whether it's a dish at a buffet or at a company meeting, the lunch platter that's put in front of you. How do you think about whether it is Nori or not? And there are a couple of steps in that. One is thinking about what was behind that food product that's now in front of you in terms of how was it grown, then it's how was it processed, and then it's how was it prepared. And that kind of, when you start getting into that, now you're really getting into your food, if you will, and you have a relationship with it, because back to our discussion on KPIs is that you want to make sure that whatever you put in your mouth is going to have a positive impact on your body.
It's not going to set you up for disease later.
Well, exactly. And then, frankly, you want to think about the Noriness of what your options are in front of you, and that can change. So do you want me to start with the Nori game, or do you want to start?
Do you want me to list? I can list like things I just come across on my daily travels, and
sure,
you can tell me that that's Nori or that's not. So, like sometimes when I have business dinners, well, they'll have all these different options. And last time I was out, I got it was fish tacos.
Oh, okay. So let's think about fish tacos. So for me, first question would be, is the fish wild caught or farm raised? Likely and so what's the difference there? So let's think about wild caught versus farm raised. So farm raised fish are usually fed some sort of soy, corn, grain meal, and 90% of corn and soybeans are genetically modified. So fish are fed a genetically modified diet, unless, of course, they're being given organic fish meal food. And so, then the next question you have to ask when it's farm raised is that, fish are not designed to eat grain, soy or corn. And so that is going to affect the fish itself, and then will also affect us when we consume that fish, and then the environment of whether it's a closed farm system or an open farm system, meaning in tanks or whether out in the ocean. Wild caught, always better, but now these days you have to ask yourself about, well, what waters were the fish caught in? I mean, think about Fukushima, the radioactive spill, and that is impacting marine life. And, we really need to be a lot more conscious of that when we're eating seafood is frankly, where did it come from? And you're not always going to know that, at the restaurant that you're in. So again, in the back of my mind is, well, do I trust the fish source? And if I do, then sure, I'll go with it. If I'm not so sure, then, I might pass and do something else. So what else is in the fish taco? So is it it's probably a corn tortilla. And
cabbage. Yeah.
Cabbage. Okay, let's go with the corn tortilla first. Again, 90% of corn is genetically modified. So that would be my first thing. Probably not likely, depending on the restaurant that you're in, not likely that they're using organic corn tortillas, but you can ask. Cabbage, it's a whole food, which is a plus. So that's great. Not a lot of processing that's gone in there. So then the question I would ask myself is, was the cabbage chemically treated? Was it grown conventionally? Probably yes. But in the whole scheme of things, as I'm thinking about the Nori-ness and the factors, give me something that you might be comparing having the fish taco to something else. And the fish taco may make more sense than the other options.
Well, the other options at this restaurant were either they had steak options or they had pasta. So in looking at that, I was thinking the fish would probably be a little bit healthier compared to the other choices that were available.
Yeah, I would probably say, so if you think about the healthy food spectrum that I have in my book, and then also the Nori graph in the book, I would probably agree with you on that. Let's talk about the steak option for a minute. And so when looking at steak, the first question is, how are the cows raised? Most of the beef that's available these days in supermarkets or restaurants are coming from factory farms. And that means that animals are being raised in very close confinement. They're in feedlots, and they're being fed a grain diet, which is generally genetically modified, non-organic grain. Cows are not designed to eat grains, and the grain actually creates an even more acidic environment for the cows. And that's as we eat cows that are fed grain diets, our internal environment also becomes more acidic, which means that we are less resistant to bacteria that would ordinarily be killed by our stomach acid. And so
it's fascinating how each component of this is so impactful. It really to me has been fascinating. Like from if you just choose conventional process, I mean every option, every component of it has this piece that you're just like most people don't even know about this.
No, and it's interesting. You mentioned that I was at the Employer Health Care Benefits Congress in Orlando a couple weeks ago, and I had a conversation with someone about Nori and creating a corporate travel culture of healthy eating and health. And he said, I don't know anywhere in the world where people teach you about food in a systematic way. I mean, just think about when you're go back to elementary school, junior high school, college. I mean, when were we ever taught about food? I mean, except for maybe if you're in an agricultural or agronomy program, or, maybe even if you're studying some sort of environmental science, you might touch on it. But for the most part, we don't know anything. I mean, it's like we've completely outsourced that and just presumed that everyone's doing things in our best interest. And so on the one hand, some people have said that it's really overwhelming to think about all this. And, I am of the opinion that the more information I have, the more responsible I can be. And so I don't look at it as being overwhelming. I look at it as knowing what I'm putting into my body and taking control of that, and not being a victim.
Yeah. And one of the simple ways also of, simple ways of bypassing some of this, some of these choices, is looking for organic restaurants when we are out, either if we're meeting people and out, if that's an option. But organic restaurants are becoming more and more a thing. It used to be where it would be really difficult to find them, and they're still not, not every city has them. But I know within the area that I'm in, there's 5 or 6 that are here that allow me to have good, food choices if I choose, if I'm going to go to that restaurant.
Absolutely. And, that's one of the first things I do whenever I land in a new city. If I haven't done it before I've left for my trip, but as soon as I land, is I have a couple of search. I look for an organic restaurant.
Well, I can talk about this topic with you for hours. You've really got this honed into a science for people, and it's simple. It's not something that has to be, we've gone into detail on some things, but it really doesn't have to be a very, thorough look. This book really does give insights on how to find Nori quickly and how to make those judgment calls. It's really a shift in perspective of how we look at what it is that we eat, So I'd like to thank you for being on the show today, Natasha.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. It has just been an absolute pleasure, and I just want to leave you and your listeners with one last thought when thinking about Nori, and that is same menu, different nutrients. And it's really that simple. You can eat the same things, but just make sure that they've got that nutrient value and that Noriness value, and you'll be on your way to better health.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to thank all of our listeners today for tuning in and enjoying this conversation with Natasha and I. And remember, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pestana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepestana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.